Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, those in between and unaffiliated, to Caleb's Car. We have long, in our history together, in the 6 years we've recorded, we've long wanted to, it's longer, but we've long wanted to record our raw thoughts, well, maybe not, well, my raw thoughts, not yours, inside his car, because he bought these recording devices, and we finally get the chance to use them, so we're gonna make use of them.
Yeah, this is sort of a flashback. This is what we used to do back in the old days. Prior to the podcast, we'd see a movie, sit in the car for hours, and yeah, it's been a long time since we did that, actually.
Shoot the crap, basically.
Yeah. I guess since I don't drive you home after the movies these days, there's not as much reason
Which
to
is
just
nice.
sit in the car.
No, that's, I appreciate those days. I'll say that. I look back on them with nostalgic eyes. Anyway, that's, sorry, neither here nor there. What did we see tonight, Caleb?
Oh, we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Oh boy. Yeah, this is a movie I was looking forward to big time. Probably the one I was looking forward to the most for this summer, at least.
Late spring.
Or late spring, that's fair. But I don't really know your history with the Planet of the Apes franchise, so I just wanted to ask. Yeah, are you much of a fan of these, new movies and the old?
My history. When we saw it together all those years ago, was that the first? No, that could have been the first time. I think I saw it at some point. I can't remember now. I have to think back. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I don't believe the first time we saw it together at, I think, Colossus, I don't think that was the first time I ever saw it. I could be wrong, though, but you bought that book, right? That graphic novel with, the original script, right?
Yeah, the Rod Sterling, Visionaries, Planet of the Apes Visionaries.
Really
cool comic.
But anyway, yeah, my history. So I've seen the first one, Planet of the Apes, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Other than Dawn of the Planet. I'm sorry, Dawn of the Apes.
Oh, did you see Rise and War?
Nope.
Oh,
I wanted to see War, but I've never. But no, I didn't get a chance to see it, or have yet not to see it, and I haven't seen any of the sequels to Planet of the Apes. It's like the original, 70s lineup.
Yeah, some of those are great. Some of those are really fun. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, maybe one day we'll have to rectify that.
I mean, one day, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why not? Plus that graphic novel, of course.
Yeah, or the original book.
That both.
Yeah, both are.
Oh, and haven't read the book.
I read that book earlier this year in prep for this, actually. Just, or return to it, I should say.
There's only one of them, correct?
Yeah, just, I think they made a prequel novel for Dawn, but I never checked that out.
That's movie tie-in.
Yeah,
whereas
those
the book,
books, yeah.
Whereas the book was independent originally.
Yeah. Yeah, French book. Oh, but, well, I guess in that case, then I am curious what you thought coming into Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Were you excited for this one to come out, or just kind of oh, okay, another one? I'll see what this is going to be.
Well, with this one, I don't know, man. I think I have what you have with the Star Wars prequels.
Star Wars, like this prequel series in general, or this movie?
Well, you don't like prequels, and so I'm like, why?
Well, I don't know. I guess you could call this a prequel. It's more like a just straight up reboot in telling their own story.
I see. Okay.
Especially if you get down to the fact that they gave a solid explanation as to why the apes reverse and the humans reverse. I guess you haven't seen the third movie.
Nope.
But they do give a explanation as to why the people are suddenly going silent and their intelligence is deteriorating.
Well, no, I didn't think that was a reboot, because that was part of the original.
Yeah.
So I didn't think I just assumed this was a prequel trilogy and not trilogy, but just a prequel series and not like a rebooted. Well, okay, let's be real here. The Tim Burton film was a reboot.
That was a remake.
A remake.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, yeah, reboot.
You know what this is? A restart. That's what it is. It's not a reboot. It's a restart, because they just decades later they came back and restarted the whole series in prequel format.
Yeah. But this would never lead into those original movies. It's its own separate timeline kind of thing.
Retelling, almost.
Retelling, yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought that through the movie of so a lot of this technology that the humans still have is probably 2010s or 2020 technology, or 2010, I guess, because I don't know when Rise takes place, but obviously it was modern then.
Yeah, 2011.
Dumb word of modern, or at least contradicting word of modern. So whatever technology they have, it just halted at that point, and from there on it was over. And But what I thought of this movie, I'll give this. I didn't find it as strong as Dawn with its, theme. Well, okay, the themes were there. I guess my best thing is all the stuff with like the apes and the fudging and the meddling or the mudding because this like takes place years after Caesar's death. We literally see like Caesar die in the beginning there. All his words and all his what he stood for have been muddled and eschewed by history, basically not even history, but just like time moving on and progressing. And I liked that a lot. I liked all that with Proximus Prime or whatever, or Proximus Caesar, excuse me. And my worst thing, I think it has to be May almost. I think it like initially I was very interested in who May was, and then like by the end part I was a little bit like I don't know if I agree with this. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Because this is your second time seeing it through.
Second time. Yeah, and I guess just to say I don't know if I've talked about my history with the series that much. But oh yeah, Planet of the Apes, mega fan. Growing up as a kid, this was one of the major franchises. In fact, I said, I was telling Eric the other day that the first Planet of the Apes reboot, the Tim Burton one, was my first cinematic, like, crushing disappointment. I was so hyped for that, and then to finally see what it was, I was like, oh my god. And that's actually when I turned on Tim Burton and have never really come back. Bitterness, I guess, still from that. So I've loved these prequels. I think that they were, again, I don't even necessarily consider them prequels. It's just kind of yeah, like you said, like a retelling. And the movie, the book, and this new series have all kind of had their own unique take on what it would look like to have apes take over and the reasons why. And so this whole virus thing, I think, is the one that I find the most interesting. And so, yeah, to see how the world's advanced is probably my favorite thing. And the fact that, like you said, Caesar's legacy remains, but it's this twisted legacy. I think that's a really cool idea. Worst thing, I like the Proximus Caesar character. I feel like maybe it wasn't quite as interesting as some of the other villains that we've seen in the series so far. I could see the complaints with May. I definitely imagine that there's people out there who just wanted a Apes movie. There definitely seems to be an audience out there, just in general, that are like, oh, let's stop inserting humans into plots that don't really have to involve them. But humans have always played a pivotal role in the Planet of the Apes franchise, and so May, as this kind of morally ambiguous character, I'm excited to see what they do with her going forward if they continue that character. But at least furthering the human plot, I like mostly what they did with it here, I'd say. But definitely not as interesting as the one from the last movie, War of the Planet of the Apes. Easily had my favorite human plot in there, so it was a bit of a step down in that regard.
I guess I'll at least state like with May, it's not because of her being morally ambiguous. It's not that. It's just when she was inside the facility, I just kept going like, yeah. And then you saw me raise my hands, right? Where I just went like the. Well, it wasn't just like how she knew what this all was. I guess by the end it makes sense. But I'm like, seriously, this place still has power? Like, movie logic, just suspend your disbelief of like it has to be like it requires the whole facility to be powered. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, and at least it seemed like it was just emergency power, and it was barely kind of functioning. There was some still lights, flickering. They didn't do it that great, but emergency power. I guess I'll buy it. But I agree, it was a little bit like, oh, okay. But and when it comes to her knowing her way around the facility, yeah, I guess she had her site directory map right there. That's
she had her like earcom in there, her earpiece to
there
like you know. And just to see, like, I guess the end, like, just to talk about, like, the worst thing with the human, not just, I don't know if it's just me, it's just, like, what the humans are doing, it's, like, at the end, because they had it perfect, like, time had advanced, many generations afterwards, and we actually saw, like, the humans devolve, basically. The virus thing, I'm fine with, that's a good, like, explanation as to why everything's reversed, that's perfect. But, like, we saw the humans, what they looked like in the original Planet of the Apes in this one as well, where we just come across them with a bunch of zebras, and I thought that was perfect. And then here's this like offshoot, like still advanced. I'm just like, how come I didn't think, because especially when I saw May and then I saw the other humans, I'm like, what is the difference? Like, there is a big contrast here where she looks well kept in a way, and the other ones don't. I mean, that was the point. I get that, but
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what the plot is for those humans, and obviously that means I have to go to the next movie if it happens. I hope it does. To see it, I guarantee you those guys will all be changed. Like it'll be a different group, not different
Hmm.
group, but it'll be different people in that same colony.
That's
So
fair.
May'll be like out and insert, next, human guide or person.
That could be. That's been the template so far. But yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from having those questions because missing that piece of the puzzle in war would definitely create a weird dynamic. But all that stuff is developed and explained in that little middle piece that you missed. And I guess I'll just say, uh, it's just that the virus mutated, and some people were immune to the mutations. Some people were immune to previous mutations are now affected by the new one that makes their brains deteriorate and their ability to speech is lost. So, coming in, I was expecting there to still be a branch of humanity that would be different than I don't know what to call them, the original Planet of the Apes style. The silent humans, I guess they say, which I liked. So yeah, I was definitely curious what they're gonna do with the remaining humans, and I thought it worked decently enough. And you can tell from the trailers because she was the only one that we'd see with clothes on. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I guess maybe she's going to be our only avatar for the thinking humans left. But branching out just from her, what do you think about the representation of the Eagle tribe, those people?
So I'm assuming that this is probably what you want with the Navi.
What way?
They seem developed, they seem intelligent, or at least, you're not rolling your eyes at, oh, Navi good, humans bad, and James Cameron's Avatar.
That's fair. This definitely had a much more complicated feel than the simplistic storytelling in Avatar. Like, even with May, it felt more complicated than something like the villains in that. Because I guess you could say that she's kind of a secondary villain, her and Proxima. And even Proxima himself, he seems at first like, oh, he's just this power hungry guy. He just wants knowledge. And then you see it's because, oh, he's keeping the humans close because he knows that they're the ultimate enemy. And he wants that power to make sure that he can battle whatever they have coming around the corner next. So, oh, yeah, no, I guess I didn't really think about Avatar. I don't really think about that too much.
Don't worry, I'm,
But,
I'm not going all Eric on you. I'm not like, I'm just trying to like think of ways of like, okay, well, how could James Cameron improve his species and his characters in that world? But it's neither here. Okay, now I'm trying to think. So May open the facility. Like the whole like end part is, even though I throw my hands up in it, the whole plot, like the whole sequence itself to like get in. It's like a Tomb Raider level almost, or at least this felt like Horizon Zero Dawn, the movie, to me.
hmm,
I know you never played that, but
no.
but like them trying to like infiltrate the facility and then like open the doors, that was cool. At least I liked that. On paper that was cool,
Yeah.
regardless of they had to like turn the machines on again or the electricity coming back on. So I'm trying to remember this, and we just watched it, so my mind's I got the virus in me. I'm starting to deteriorate, but she wants to obviously like flood the whole facility, which makes sense. So the apes don't have that. That's fair. I don't think that's antagonist. I mean, antagonist to the apes. The only part that's negative is that the eagle tribe gets like caught in the middle of it. But she also said like, but the question of whether or not the apes in cages is going to occur again, that's
Yep.
raised by the end of it. I didn't get that from her. I just assumed she got rid of all those weapons because, again, if ambitious apes like Proxima, excuse me, gets it, that's going to be bad.
Yeah, and that was kind of the ultimate kind of question with her is kind of like, yeah, you're so desperate for humanity to get back to being on top, but what does that mean for the apes? You even yourself said that, oh, they didn't leave, or they didn't live equally. The humans were dominant, so what's going to happen to the apes? Are they going to go back to the cages, or... I mean, I would think at this point humanity would just try to wipe them out. But after all this, I mean, how could you trust the apes after that? They're not going to want to give up their power.
Or at least their livelihood.
Livelihood, yeah.
Because, I mean,
Dominion.
the eagle tribe was they were living like fairly simple. I don't mean that in a bad, like not simple-minded, just very simple. You know, they were hunter-gatherers. They used what they could. They had a good correlation with the eagles, sort of good relation with the eagles. So they, yeah, I don't know, they seemed, to get along.
Yep, yep. Oh, and I love the look of their little society in there. I thought that looked great, and the fact that he had an eagle brother, our lead character. I thought that was an interesting dynamic too. I wasn't really expecting that coming in. I thought the eagles would just be like tools for them. But the fact that they gave a little character arc with the two brothers, quote unquote, I thought that was a fun development as well.
I agree.
Now, how about our main baddie gorilla? Because I remember me and Brianna went to go see a movie in IMAX, and they gave just that scene of May hiding in the reeds, and then that gorilla chasing her and then leaping off. And me and Brianna were both like, "Oh my god, that gorilla is terrifying!" And so we were like, "Oh, I wonder what that's going to be." What did you think about that baddie?
Well, I was thinking back to going back to the context that I know of with the original Planet of the Apes. The gorillas were, I think, like the guards, the security guards, because, I mean, they're huge and lumbering. Yeah. The orangutans were like the intelligent, either the leaders or the intelligent, like the scientists. No, or the chimps as scientists. It's been a while.
Yeah, it was like the chimps were the scientists and the regular folks. Orangutans were like the elite class. They were the ones who were the knowledge holders and the ones who controlled the religion. So I guess they tied that in a little bit with the Raka character in this one. And then, the gorillas were just the security people, the military, and, the general class. Which always created an awkward dynamic, because Planet of the Apes was partially a comment on mistreatment of animals with science, but then also talk about, like, religion and some racial tension stuff. And so the fact that the darkest of the apes was the consistently the villainous ones was always like,
and still is. I mean, I know Proximus is a chimpanzee, but obviously I don't know what his name is. I guess the big guard guy, but like he's also a gorilla, so problematic even in 2024. Okay.
And I get it, because they're the most muscular ones, or the big baddies. Like if you were to encounter a chimp or a gorilla, you'd probably be more scared of the gorilla. Although you probably should be more scared of the chimp.
Yeah. Rip your face off.
Which is visually speaking. So I get why they do it. It just, it's a little bit, makes their message a little bit wavery. But
I mean, maybe wavery, yes, but maybe it's still a comment.
Well,
that even the biggest and strongest are, regardless of what they are, always treated as like the guards.
Yeah, that's fair. The ones who have the stronger thinking ability. Yeah, again, it makes sense if you're just looking at the structure of their world. It's just when you separate it to the racial commentary that they're trying to make, that's when it gets uncomfortable. But
oops.
But how about the overall CGI experience? Would you think that this is on the level of something like Avatar: The Way of Water, like you mentioned, or a couple steps below?
I'd probably say equal, but it was CGI City. Like, and I don't just mean with like the obvious chimps or apes or whatever. The whole background itself as well, like the entire like landscape and everything was just CGI. And people will say, no, it wasn't. It's like, yeah, it was. What are you talking about? All this stuff was like made up. It was all computer generated. None of this stuff was real.
Yeah, they'd film outside, but you can tell that all the backgrounds are just like matte paintings, except CGI matte paintings.
Very well integrated, I will say that.
Yeah.
This is not a negative. This is just this is the truth of like. Now, if you think this is like, it's like how I was ignorant to think like, oh, they didn't use CGI in Top Gun Maverick or something like that. Oh, they did. It's just they integrated it properly.
Yeah, same with Fury Road. I've seen in Backlash to Furiosa, people are like, oh, there's so much CGI in Furiosa. That's why we loved Fury Road. It was CGI-less. But, I mean, even just Furiosa, the character herself with the missing arm, that was all obviously CGI, but yeah, kind of an odd complaint for Furiosa. I get some of the complaints, but...
of course.
But no, I agree. I don't know if it's quite... I mean, the James Cameron, it's so precise, the CGI, and so immersive. I think this movie is almost to that level. But
to be fair, I don't know how much this cost to make. So And Way of Water was like either between, was it 200 $300 million. So,
Yeah.
and worked on for a very long time as well. So
That's a good point, because this is half that. It's like 150 million, I think. So for that budget, it does look pretty excellent.
regardless, the CGI looks top notch. I will say that, but I don't know if other. You know what it was with the orangutan? I already forget his name. Baraka. It's not Baraka.
Yeah, Rocka.
Raka. Thank you. He looked the most convincing. In fact, he almost looked like he was. He almost looked like Yoda from Empire Strikes Back. Like he almost looked like he was a puppet. Like he was maybe not fully of the original Planet of the Apes, but it definitely looked like he was wearing like a real mask, a real like orangutan mask. So I was convinced by him. I could definitely tell with Noah at first. I say at first, but obviously like it's not uncanny. I don't think it is just yet. I wonder like how much further we're gonna get. Like I don't know. Because actually the first thing I thought of was when we were seeing, him and his two buds, climbing the skyscrapers to get eggs. I went, because at first I saw them using sign language, and I wonder if that was I don't know if they talk in war, but I was wondering if they were going to use sign language in this throughout the whole thing, and obviously they did sometimes, but no, they started talking. I'm like, okay, so we're getting closer. Like, I know the idea is that we're getting closer and closer to Planet of the Apes. At least that's my head. That's what I'm thinking. So it's like, okay, when do they start wearing clothes? Because it's slowly getting there, obviously. And, Proximus was also wearing clothes to a point. Because I remember that all the apes in the original were also wearing clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, with the way that this movie went, I almost wonder, because I've always been curious that clearly this is not, or at least and from what I've heard from the producers, this is never going to lead to that original Planet of the Apes. But they may get to a point where they would remake that point in its history. And I've always been curious if they would go more in the direction of the book. Because in the book, they don't arrive in like I don't know what to call it. The slightly more primitive society that they have in the original Planet of the Apes. Like they're still working in their development. Versus the book, where it's like, the era that the book was written in, I think late 50s, that's essentially what you arrive in. It's the apes have the exact same mirrored society.
I see.
So at the end of this one, there was a lot of talk about, hey, we're going to move forward, we're going to progress things from the things we've learned. Even at the end with him looking up into space with that telescope. I was like, I wonder if they're going to progress forward in a more advanced way than maybe we saw in that original movie. Because they even say in the original movie that it was like the religious class was holding back science, was limiting how far they can go. Because they knew about the history of the humans. So, I think they left themselves a lot of potential going forward after this one.
Is it the same producers all the way from Rise?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point.
Actually, when it said based on the characters by, was that all the way to the like original like Planet of the Apes movie or book, or was it from Rise? It's based on the characters by. I'm like,
I don't think I noticed that credit. Yeah, I'm not sure what it said. Did it say Pierre Bol? Did you see, or
maybe? Yeah. Is that one of the writers of the book?
Yeah, creator of the book, and I think he also worked with Rod Sterling a little bit on the creation of the original script. At least was like a consultant for him.
Yeah, I didn't know about the book being just, modern times, but, apes instead. That literally does completely sound like Sterling's writing. Like that sounds like it's in his wheelhouse.
So yeah, no, I'm very curious to see. Hopefully this made enough money to keep going. I actually don't know what the box office was, but I don't think any of these have necessarily been like huge earners. I think they've all been like they make back their budget and a little bit more. And so we don't get another one for, 5 years or something like that. So.
Yeah, except for War, because that came almost not immediately, but it was no, I guess it was 2017, never mind. Or was it 16? No, I don't remember now.
Yeah, now that you say that, actually, I guess those three were on a 3-year cycle with those ones. I think War just didn't make quite as much. And so they put it to rest for, how long has it been now? It's been 7 years, maybe?
As long as the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, just
about.
Oh,
shoot. Okay, that's funny.
And these movies have always tried to have at least one human character that was kind of a character actor that people would know. Like, of course, we had James Franco. We got Gary Oldman. Oh, what's that? Why am I forgetting the other guy's
Woody
name?
Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, thank you. And now we got William H. Macy. So I was like, okay, Macy, I haven't seen him in a little while. Happy to see him. His character, not a huge amount there, but for the bit that he was, I enjoyed his presence. Glad to see him.
I liked how conflicted he was, where said, well, he had no choice. He had no choice but to, be part of, Proximus's inner circle, because he doesn't want to get ripped off and ripped in half, excuse me, by any of his guards. So I enjoyed that dilemma that he had. I don't know if he was going to go back to his room after he had that conversation with May and the others, but I mean, that's where my eyes opened up when I guess where May is, and I think maybe that's what the filmmakers wanted to make May a morally ambiguous character when she knocked him out. By the way, movie logic of she killed him. It's I got the same move done to me last night by a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old, and I was fighting for my life, and I was just gonna get knocked out. I got out of it, but anyway, whatever. Yeah. Just, throw my hand, suspension of disbelief. Movie logic snaps his neck.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, did she snap his neck when he was struggling, or did she just strangle him to death? Because it seemed pretty quick. But yeah, like you said, just movie logic. It's the dramatic weight is, I guess, Caesar said ape doesn't kill ape. But now we see that at least those apes, the human apes, she'll kill another one if she needs to. So maybe she's not that different from Proxima and his gang. So I liked that moment. And I liked the music during that moment too, and throughout the whole movie. I thought this was a pretty good score for, kind of mixing a lot of the themes from the previous three movies, but also pulling back from that original one as well. They brought in a lot of piece of music from that original movie.
During the bridge crossing scene, I heard pieces in what I could almost think was from the original score of Planet of the Apes, and I guess maybe during the ransacking or the raid on the primitive humans, the voiceless humans, with the chimpanzees, I assumed that they also grabbed they grabbed some stuff from tracks, from the original.
Yep, definitely that bit too. And that was a pretty fun scene. That original scene when they're kidnapping all the primitive humans in the original movie always terrified me when I was a kid. It was so freaky, and that score really helped. So I was glad to see they brought some of that back. And some direct visual references too, not just the musical reference.
You know why it was so effective then? Because everything you were looking at was real.
Yeah.
No computer-generated images. Okay, sorry. I'm going too far there.
But at least in terms of what they've done with the apes. I mean, I love the look of those apes in the original movie, but it always confused me why the orangutans and the gorillas didn't seem bigger. I was always you should pad out their costumes. They look substantially bigger than the chimps, because chimps are small. So the fact that we can get more accurate representations now, I think, elevates it from a little bit more campy sci-fi and gives it a more serious feel.
I have the opposite opinion. I actually like the campy sci-fi aspect of it, because that allows me to suspend my disbelief. Because you're obviously not going to get and achieve, real simians in that level. So even if it was people in costumes, it was so come on, you get
the first movie. I'll say,
yeah. Well, I've only seen that one, so
yes.
I can't. That's what I'm only commenting on. Now, maybe I'm going a little too I'm trying to convince you emotionally, but I think the way they did it was very creative in how they had to do it. Yeah. I give them the benefit of the doubt that it was people in costumes, but they convinced me. Even if it's not, I just assumed, in my head, it's just oh, well, the apes evolved to literally, almost, I mean, they're humanoid in real life, I get that, but they evolved and devolved to, look a lot more human-like in body structure style, even though they still have, the dexterous, feet. But anyway.
Yeah, and some of this comes from me having seen the sequels, where they definitely I mean, the budget's decreased with every movie,
I
and
get
so
that.
the quality of the makeup and the masks most definitely decreased at times dramatically. And so the fact that these movies continue to push the bar and seemingly just get better and better, it's I'm really glad that they're putting that money in to make sure that they keep this a prestige series, unlike what they did with the original sequels.
Quite the opposite of the original Star Wars trilogy. Because those, like, either increased in budget or at least, like, put more into, like, their effects.
Yeah, well, Warner Brothers at the time, or not Warner Brothers, who produced this again?
20th Century
20th
Fox.
Century Fox. And they were like, oh, sci-fi, that's for TV. So they were like almost putting their TV crew on these movies.
Which is funny because they also did Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Thank you, Alan Ladd Jr.
And definitely I really appreciate whoever was doing the voice capture for Noah. I was wondering if they were going to try to emulate the Caesar kind of persona. I wasn't necessarily thinking that it was going to be the same, but I thought it'd be more similar. But he gave us a lot of very different facial kind of movements and reactions that felt, distinct to its own. It didn't necessarily feel like a Caesar clone. Because, by the way, Caesar, that character, there's many people out there today who say it's one of the best movie characters that we've had post the 21st century. He's definitely elevated as one of the cinema's greats, and I somewhat agree. I think that they really did a fantastic job with him, especially in war. So, there was some trepidation coming in, getting this new character, but I think it was a solid start. I don't think it's, I didn't walk away thinking, oh no, he's going to be one of cinema's great characters, but them setting up from that young guy who's kind of, not maybe looked at as the best, at least not from his dad, for the fact that we end with him being elevated up to, I think, being the leader. I wasn't 100% sure, but it seemed like he was the new leader. So I was like, okay, they've got some places to take him now too.
Classic hero's journey.
Yeah, I guess so.
I doubt he'll be in the sequel. I think they're gonna, like I said, use the colony of humans that can still speak. They're gonna not look through them, but the next one will be in a different tribe, probably in a different place, but those humans will still be there to do whatever shenanigans they're going to be up to.
I'd be surprised if they did that, because it seemed like they were setting him up as the new lead. I could be wrong, but I know they did say that they're hoping to do a new trilogy, so it feels like it makes sense, but maybe not. You could be right. Maybe the human element is going to be more of the carryover.
I'll give them this for them being literacy buffs, because they did a really subtle job of keeping Noah's namesake in check. I think they did it, and very subtle in a way, where it wasn't so obvious that he's supposed to be reflecting on biblical Noah.
Oh, I'm so detached from that stuff. I didn't even think about the connection. It never occurred to me.
Oh, I know, especially in the end with like the water coming in. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna clap, but like, no, you get a thumbs up for me. I'm feeling it with that, because I think they did it so, especially with the bird motif as well, where like, there's no olive branch, but like, and it's not a dove, I get that, but again, adaptation, I can't, and he leads people, like, okay, it's not an arc, I get that, maybe you can call the colony or the facility an arc, I don't really know, but he brings people out of the arc and they go into the light. Oh boy, I have another pet. This is not like a negative to the movie. This is just like my personal, like, you know what? It just pissed me off. I don't know why. If it wasn't, it was, again, movie logic. If it wasn't that there was like a full moon there every night, bull crap. That's not what like nighttime looks like, especially without darkness. Like, I have been on the ocean when it's nighttime and it is scary. There's nothing. Like, even if you looked up and saw stuff, like, it's not as... Sorry, that just peed me off. That's not going to be a negative, like, that's not going to affect the overall score. That's just my personal opinion of, like, I didn't like that. I know why they had to do it, because there's, because the scene's great. The scene is great with that moon. My, like, emotional part of it was all in. My emotional side was all in. But then when it was, like, the other, like, my intellectual side, I'm like... this is not how this works, you guys. Suspension of disbelief, whatever. Again, doesn't affect the score.
That's fair. And hey, at least the moon is there. I don't know if you remember this detail in the original Planet of the Apes, but they do comment that, oh, what happened to the moon? The moon's gone. And I was always baffled by that. I was like, what do they mean the moon's gone? So I guess that's another thing to watch out for, to see if this will tie in eventually.
That is going to have dire consequences. Like, that has dire consequences, not just like, in movie, but like without that, we get hit with a lot more meteorites.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter by that point because I don't exactly know how many meteorites there are. By the way, this is not in the same universe as Mad Max.
No, but it was funny. You said that you were going to do a double bill today, these two. And I was thinking like, oh, it's in a way an apocalypse double bill. So maybe not a bad pairing, actually. I don't know.
I still go with Escape from New York being in the same universe as Mad Max.
Oh, well, we did touch on that Rocca character a little bit. I'll say Brianna in particular always loved the orangutan from the previous movies, Maurice. And so coming into this one, she was like, oh, whoever this new orangutan is, he's got a lot to live up to. And I was kind of disappointed that because I started liking the guy and then he was kind of gone relatively quickly. It seemed like it was maybe halfway through the movie, would you say?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. I was starting to like that guy. I was kind of sad that he was gone for the rest of it.
So unlike him, who has probably seen one scene from the film, then in IMAX, and then probably a lot of trailers, all I saw was the poster.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm actually appreciative of. Like, trailers these days, I'm not a fan of trailers anymore, which is funny because I used to be like the trailer guy of like, no, I only want to see trailers instead of anything else. But like now at this point, I don't think trailers are directed well, which is, I should direct a trailer. You know what? I should do a trailer just to like, show how I can do it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So obviously I see Noah, May, and Rocca on the poster. So I'm like, okay, so I guess they're going to be, the eyes the point of view characters. And it would have been interesting had they continued with Rocca going to Caesar, or to go see, Proxima, excuse me, and have almost him challenge Proxima's ideas. And then in like, Apes for Apes or whatever, or like Together We Are Strong or whatever. By the way, him saying a lovely day, I'm like, okay, no, this is like full on Fury Road. But it would have been interesting if he had offed Rocca like behind the scenes, if if he was going to cause like an uprising, basically. Because obviously, I love the ties back to Roman history, like Proxima is basically like, and so all the other apes in the kingdom were slaves. And I just like that detail of what they were doing with where, we stand strong, we are strong together, but there clearly is like, a social class and big difference there. Yeah. So it would have been interesting if Rocca was there. So yeah, I was disappointed that he did not continue, and things probably would have been different, but they went with what they went with.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would have actually added a lot, and it would have delved more into Caesar stuff, which again, so many people love that character, so I think it would have been a fun challenge. Yeah, I'm not sure why they got rid of him so soon, because I feel like he would have also been useful to keep going forward if they continue with this tribe, to let that Caesar legacy live on. So yeah, I definitely thought that was a bit of a shame.
Heck, a conversation between him and William H. Macy's character, that would have been, I would have liked to see that now. To see like what ideals or at least what opinions they have with it. I would have definitely liked to see that.
Yeah, and I also thought it was a shame that early on he says that he's the last of the, I can't remember what the name was. It wasn't Cult of Caesar. It was something else of Caesar. Ones who would keep his memory going and teach his ways. I was like, oh, I wish he wouldn't have said that he was the last. I wish that there was still that group out there to encounter later on. And maybe they could become the teachers of the future generations. Because at this point it might be like, oh, after this movie, Caesar's legacy is kind of done. And that'd be a shame.
And his name will be misused. But I guess it's a comment, like, on just the way historical figures are mythified and taken out of context when, as the age passes or ages go on,
Yeah.
which is a good way to comment. I definitely had some Dune vibes, by the way, just of the way Proximus was like leading people. I was like, okay, I can sort of see like a bit of dark side of Paul in this. I mean, don't worry, it's not completely. And again, yes, my reference is only the movies, so I know I'm doing a disservice to the books. I'm just going by what I know.
Yeah, no, and when we first saw when those guys show up at the village and they start killing folks and saying for Caesar, I was like, oh, that's why we opened up with the little memorial. Because I wasn't really sure why they began the movie with Caesar's death. I was like, oh, I thought we were kind of putting that stuff to bed. And so to see them bring it back in that way was really surprising and interesting early on. And I will say, as much as I enjoy that scene of them raiding the Eagle towers and villages, it really, really reminded me of a video game when you fall into a cutscene and you're just kind of, you, the protagonist, are not necessarily being directly affected by all the actions that are going around you. It's like you're on a ride.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, I was like, wow, did they bring in video game developers to do this, storyboard this sequence for them? It was still a cool sequence, but I couldn't escape that feeling.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, this is just a roller coaster. Like we're only like he's gonna survive by way of like plot armor. Like he'll survive in the cutscene, and then when we like pick him up, he'll be fine. God, that needs to stop. Gotta stop this. It's madness. It's gotta be done, Caleb. I can't take it anymore. It's getting like whatever. Like, but that's just the way for the film to progress.
Yeah.
But no, well, yeah, I love that though. Like, because once they said like, for Caesar, I went, that's why they had that quote. That's why they had that title card in the beginning.
Yeah.
Didn't really think so much of the memorial, which is fine. But like, spoilers for me, Caesar. Well, not really. But I just like the fact that this story picks up like generations later. Like we don't know how long it was.
Yeah.
But then they like just start somewhere. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it was a cool progression. And I love to see that the cities have become their own unique forest.
Ecosystem, basically, which is, like, it's scenery porn, but it's problematic for me because that's uncanny valley to me. I'm like, oh, like, it looks nice, but it just, I know it's CGI, and that's not fair to computer-generated images. It's just, hey, when it's everything computer-generated, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. If it was human beings jumping around on there, oh man, there'd be bad motion blur going on, and it would just be like, oh, there's someone on a green screen. But because the apes themselves were, it's easier to integrate when it's like that.
So honestly, it could have just been like an excuse to say this was a video game instead of a actual movie, but it actually has thought to it.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was actually Brianna who, when we came out, was like, oh, I'm surprised they haven't made a Planet of the Apes video game yet, because this movie in particular would be great for it. Which is surprising from her, who's somebody who's not a gamer. So,
if it was more intellectual and if it was more like a point-and-click adventure game, I think it'd probably do better.
Could be.
Now, in the original Planet of the Apes, there were rifles, correct? There were obviously, because I remember the image of Charlton Heston having a gun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what part of it was it? There was right. When we first meet Rocca, I immediately flash back to Logan's Run. That's what it was with Peter, what's his name's character. I don't know why I thought and all of a sudden I like just connected, okay, so this is in the same world as Logan's Run, which I could almost see. And then it made me think in the movie, I'm like, not in the movie, but during the movie I just thought, holy smokes, that was one of the things that like some of those science fiction films of the 70s had in common, where it was all not just about like, living in a post-apocalyptic future or like post-societal collapse for humanity, but it's all about knowledge and thought and opening your mind up to other ideas, which I guess in a way this movie now reminded me of the original 70s, or I guess 76. See our brief discussion on that. Logan's Run.
Did we? Oh yeah, you're right. We did a bonus episode.
Yeah, wow. I did a little which obviously I'll go into detail one day about. We can do an actual discussion over it one day. But Those are just my general thoughts of what I thought of it. But this movie now reminded me, Kingdom of Apes reminded me of Logan's Run 1976 or whatever year that was.
I could definitely see that.
Especially because it's like a whole system itself that's like control. I mean, it's briefly touched on like Caesar's or not see Proximus's kingdom.
Yeah.
It's there. I think it needed to be more about that. They had too many good ideas. I think they had too many good ideas because like they start with a hero's journey. I mean, I see your point as to why Proximus is probably like a not as well written villain or antagonist as like the previous ones because I can like I feel like we needed to be more a part of it. It actually reminded me of, I've never played it, but it's part in Fallout New Vegas where there's literally another like there's a whole like clan or faction of people that base themselves, and there's a guy named Caesar, I believe, where it is like this legion basically. They base themselves off the of like, you know, Roman times in that era, and they have like, you know, all those titles of certain Roman names and terms. So it kind of reminded me of that, but I wonder if that goes into more. I don't really know. I kind of wanted to see like, you know, the social structure of how his whole like it's there. I get that, but it felt surface level to me. I felt like it could go further than just that.
Yeah, I agree. Even on the second viewing, it was still kind of like, yeah, this part feels the least developed. I still appreciate that Proxima. It wasn't just that he was this, you know, wanting to imitate the humans, you know, like was it King Louis, who just wanted to be a man, be like a man. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do.
He didn't have a good musical number like him.
That's fair. But so at least he had that, okay, you know, we keep the humans close so we can figure out, you know, how to undo them completely and make sure they never can put us back in cages. And I love that drop too, because of course Noah, their society is so removed that they really don't know anything about that Earth past. And so when he first hears that, you can kind of see the change in him. And I also like that they called them echoes. I thought that was a cool decision. Like these echoes of what we are, or what the past is. I don't even know if they know the origin or where that comes from, them calling them that, but...
And again, because this whole like thing is so like in the start, this like whole premise off the bat of, you know, generations later, you know, we have this ape society that's just living by itself, hunters and gatherers, just doing their own thing, and they live in like just not knowing. I don't know if it's ignorance, because you don't have to be a part of the rest of the world and be ignorant, because what does that even mean? Ignorant to what? The general like consensus of what knowledge is?
Yeah, and by the way, that's another thing that you missed without that missing piece in the middle of the war. Because there's kind of a question where it's like, is the only apes that are the smart apes the ones that were created in that lab, or at least infected in that lab, I should say, the ones who were directly given the virus? But all of a sudden in War for the Planet of the Apes, they come across this zoo, and there's one ape there, and they're like, oh, like, what the hell? So, like, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Because the virus went airborne. So the fact that we get to this group, a group that maybe never had anything to do with Caesar, they were just their own group, I thought that was another cool way to go. And Caesar's group, yeah, devolved into what Proxima Caesar's cult became. So, another interesting development.
But it was a cool idea that it also challenged the idea of, I don't know if it's a criticism, but it definitely showcased and put a spotlight over a person who does live in the dark, Homer's cave metaphor, if you remember. I believe it's Homer's cave metaphor, where the person leaves the cave and sees all this wonder in the world. They go back into the cave, and their comrades don't believe them.
Yeah, that's interesting. The fact that at the end he did that little trek with his, I can never catch her name. I remember his other name was, his friend's name was Anaya.
Yep.
I don't remember what her name was. But he has this chimp that maybe they're going to lead into a romantic dynamic if they keep going with these characters. I like that he brought her to that telescope at the end. That little trek.
At first I thought they were all siblings. Maybe that's just rude of me to assume that they were, but obviously like they're different, because yes, chimps and, well, everyone mates, because how else are they supposed to continue to exist? But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not. I don't believe that they'll continue on with these characters, because I almost get the feeling like they're gonna look at it more like the MonsterVerse with Legendary, where they are going to now change points of views and bring in different new like members of cast, or just like new characters instead in place of the original. So, or not original, but the previous film. That's just what I ultimately am reading right now, even though I don't have the script in front of me of what's the next one's gonna be or anything like that. But I just get that feeling. I don't know why. I have that hunch.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. Who knows when the next one's come out, if they're ever going to make another one. Because, again, I don't know how well this one's doing. All I know is I saw Denis Villeneuve put out a post a couple weeks ago being like, oh, I'm so happy that my movie was so successful, but so far it's still the biggest earner this year, and I really hope that people keep going to the movies for other movies. So I don't know if that's meaning that this movie's flopped. I'm not sure. I know Furiosa is currently in the flop category. So either way, I'm hopeful that they'll make another one. And I hope that they stick with this group of characters too. I think that they could do some interesting stuff with them.
Well, I hope that wasn't a flex on people, like a passive-aggressive flex to say, hey, everybody go out, or hey, other directors, my movie made money. I hope not.
Yeah, I think it was encouraging people to keep going to the movies.
Of course.
It's like, oh, thank you for coming to my movie, but yeah, could you go see these ones too? Keep the industry healthy. Because I know currently in the States, at least, movie theaters are shutting down like flies.
Did you watch the most recent Red Letter Media regarding that?
No, I saw that I saw it was a death of movie theaters video, but I just wondered if that was them again, kind of bitching about the experience in their area.
A shameless plug. I watched the whole thing. It's very entertaining and actually pretty informative, and you'll be surprised what Mike sides with or what comes out of his mouth.
I know for years they've been like, oh, I'll wait for streaming. That's why they don't really cover new release movies as much these days, because they're like, oh, I'll just wait for streaming. I hate movie theaters. And they were wishing that they would die. So I was like, it's probably just them complaining about movie theaters again. I go to the theater every week. I love the movie theater.
Yeah,
it doesn't die. So.
You're keeping the whole thing employed for its sakes and sustained.
If only, yeah.
But you never worked there. You're only there to see movies, not to work there.
I always wished I could when I was a teenager. I just unfortunately did not have the time, and as an adult would not pay enough for me to maintain my mortgage. So,
unfortunately, there's a dark side to movie theaters as well as how unfortunate the staff is treated. But I mean, that's in really any menial task and menial job wage.
High turnover rate. Usually, teenagers are the only ones that stick around for too long.
Mm-hmm.
But do we have too many more places to go?
This was like a whole... I looked at the credits of this film, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are, and I think that's a good thing, because they were all unknowns, and I think all of them did a good... I was hoping that most of them are theater actors. I'm fine for that. They're all theater actors, because they knew how to perform.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Performances were all good, and I agree. I don't know if it's just motion capture, where they're like, who's good in motion capture, that's who we want, not who's just a random actor to throw in. Like, we complain with voice actors all the time. Oh, they're not bringing in professional voice actors. They're just bringing in big names to fill out the role.
The next Transformers film.
And maybe they're specifically looking for people who could do really well in motion capture.
And are still good actors in general.
Yeah, exactly.
The girl May, like... First off, I looked at her eyes when she was first seen, and oh boy, like that was what hypnotized me to her. And then I looked at her like in, I guess, the daylight, and she looks like a female version of Jeremy Renner.
Oh, yeah, I could see it. Similar head shape, similar nose shape. I could see. Yeah, the only actor that I recognize, and actually that's one of the reasons I usually just get up and leave after that movie's done. I don't know. You mean you have a different. Feeling of whenever I see the staff waiting at the side to clean up, I just feel guilty, and so I'm like, oh, I'll get out of their way. But this time I did stick around long enough to see who was in the cast, because I kept wondering, was Martin Lawrence playing Rocca, and who the hell was playing that Proxima Caesar? Because I was like, I recognize that voice, the face even looked a bit familiar. and it was driving me crazy. And then I saw that it was Peter Durand. Peter Durand, Canadian actor. He was in so many different shows that I've seen, Lost being the one I remember the most specifically. And so I was like, hey, that guy was that him. That was him? Wow. But I can actually see it now in my head, thinking back, and hear it.
Yeah, no, there's no bad performances in this. It all just goes back to the story and the writing. That's, for me, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is for you, feeling more negative, or were you saying? Or
Having some gripes, like, over maybe not the whole story. I'm just still, like, a little bit, like, miffed about the humans. Because, again, I'm too stuck in my ways, Caleb. I'm too like, closed-minded in that I can only see this, like, whole series, like, these whole prequels as, a build-up to the original planet. And obviously, like, you can't... I'm too ignorant. I gotta admit, this is the wrong series for me, but, like, I'm too emotionally I'm just too emotional.
I'll spoil one thing for you. Considering this is your complaint, if you watch the Planet of the Apes sequels, the original ones, at a certain point, they start doing prequels themselves. And the prequel, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, is one of my absolute favorite of the Planet of the Apes movies. I think they did it so brilliantly. And it's actually about Caesar as well. A very, very different Caesar. And the Rise of the Planet of the Apes was, in a way, almost a remake of that, kind of.
Oh.
So.
There you go, because I've not seen Conquest nor Rise.
Yeah. And they did a great job adapting that story and making it their own. So prequels, in a way, are kind of already embedded in the franchise.
So do you think we will get a Planet of the Apes again at one point?
Like another version of the original movie?
A third movie title of that, so yeah, remake.
I'd be very open to them doing it. I think that there'd be a lot of room to do something really interesting, especially if they more directly adapted the book, while keeping this reason for the apes being the way that they are. Because I will say the explanation they've given us with the virus, I already said, was, I think, the most interesting and the best developed. The one, especially in the book, is easily the stupidest reason as to why the apes are the way that they are.
Nuclear holocaust?
No, it's even more silly. I won't spoil it because maybe we'll review that one day.
Of course. Keep that to your chest.
Yeah, I always appreciated the idea of this virus and the fact that it mutates, and it's the human's own undoing. Also kind of fits into the theme of the original book. They just give it a much more scientifically interesting reason. Whereas in the book, it's easily the weakest part, and the part that makes you scratch your head and kind of like, oh, I wish that they would have done something much smarter than that.
The idea, of course, is very grounded. Like, it's obviously not fully realistic, of course, because, I mean, that hasn't happened yet in our society that we're talking about here. In 100 years, if somebody's listening to this, it's obviously different because the events of Planet of the Apes have happened, or Rise of the Apes, exactly, where the virus has taken over and we're now mutes. That's not true. But with... with the virus, like, it's more plausible, it's more obviously it's adapted, like, it hasn't happened yet. It's at least, I don't think it scientifically can happen in real life, but what it is, I believe, I'm fine with the premise of that. That makes sense.
And when we eventually get to it, the way that they designed the virus is actually really interesting too. And the fact, the way it mutated makes sense from how they're designing it to be. So Rise is a really good one as well.
And of course, going back to what you said earlier about, like, humans are pivotal, over this franchise. That's true. I'm not denying that. It's just like, I don't know what they're up to. They're schemers. I don't trust them, and I don't trust May anymore. They're obviously, because I was kind of like miffed. Don't worry, I was going to walk out the last 5 minutes, obviously. By the way, so I did stay. I usually stay for, like, to see if there's a post-credit scene. There was a grunt. It sounded like an ape grunt. So just a sound cue.
Weird.
But at the end, when they, like, spoilers, listening like this long, it's like, yes, full
we've
spoilers.
Already spoiled. Yeah. Put in the description or something.
She brings the data disk or whatever piece of hardware it was, SATCOM. Thank you. They plug it in there and they, like, I guess, align the satellites.
Yep.
I don't know how somebody was was stuck in the International Space Station or whatever they're implying, if that is the original like rocket ship, because that's what I thought War was about. I thought it was like, I mean, I've not seen it, but that was what I was speculating on, that it's Heston and his other two compatriots, and wasn't there 6 of them, or was only 3? I think I'm 2001. Sorry,
4.
Only 4 of them. Well, there was only because didn't one die when they crashed?
Woman.
That's what right. The woman. Okay, right. When they, I thought that was what it was, where they lifted off in War, but I guess not.
No, yeah, nothing like that.
Has that happened yet at all? Because, like, was that like a post-credit scene in Rise? I mean, I guess you can keep that
it's
to
an
yourself.
Easter egg. There's a moment on a TV screen early on when they say, "Oh, this space mission, this experimental space mission just took off." You just see it on a TV screen, them talking about it.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like, if you want to think that eventually they'll come to Earth and we'll remake this, then we introduced that little seed to grow.
Okay. Because the what was it? The allusions to them with like the telescope, the art on the wall with like the spaceman or the space person, the astronaut, like with the helmet on, like that's a good like allegory, not allegory, but that's a good like shout out to the original movie. But if it's at the end, if the humans are talking to that crew, I was crying foul, because personally I'm like, well, that's not how. See, you know what I am? You know what I am? I am the persons who think, oh, how come? So where's Superman in this next Wolverine versus Deadpool or Wolverine Deadpool movie? How come he's not in the trailer?
Because the multiverse?
Crossing like Superman, Wolverine, Deadpool.
Superman, I'm confused.
People who think that all comic books are the same line and there's no separation of like, this is not how it works.
Oh, you're saying like the minor ignorance to the history.
I'm ignorant because I assume I literally am the person who thought, well, they have the same effing, like, in the title, it's there. Because the reason I call it, I don't know if I said this, but the reason I'm calling it, I've been saying this for years. The reason I'm calling it Kingdom of Apes, because I think it's utterly stupid and not pointless, but I just think it's a run-on sentence to call it Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I'm like, too many ofs, too much.
Yeah, they've been doing that since Beneath.
I guess they have.
Not. Beneath Planet of the Apes, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm just ignorant. I'm too emotional. No, I'm dumb. I'll say it that, but I just didn't like it. There's my reason, man. I'm too ignorant I was too tied to the original. I'm too tied to that great property that is like Planet of the Apes, even though the book is probably better.
No. The first movie is brilliant. The book is really good. The book is not brilliant. But I'll say one of the brilliant things about that original movie too is that ultimately the apes really aren't the villains as well. It's ultimately the humans.
Yep.
And I love the fact that it begins with someone who's the ultimate cynic, someone who hates humanity and is literally put on trial to defend it.
Yep.
And then at the end realizes, oh, what was I defending? These maniacs, they blew it all up. In every preceding movie, the humans continue to be the villains every single time.
And it's not the humans presently. Because, like, we're seeing the consequences or the aftermath of that and what they've become. Mutes. Yeah. They've returned to nature, basically. They are now, like, the roles are reversed. It's apes in charge. Humans are now, put into cages. That was the great part about the original, which you're right. And why am I repeating you? But you're right. It's just, I'm saying it wasn't the present humans at the time. It was, yes and no.
Yes, because prequel things happen.
Present, what I mean by present, it was also Heston complaining to potentially like the audience.
Yeah.
Of like, this is your guys' fault. I don't know about like the humans in the movie, because they're just like, they can't speak. So that's what I mean by, like, I don't know if he's complaining to them, but he's complaining to us, the audience.
the humans that could potentially go to the future that he just fell into.
Exactly.
Yeah, they were the reasons who gave up the world of the apes and destroyed themselves
Yep.
and everything.
So it.
Yeah, and even though everyone says Beneath the Planet of the Apes is, stupid and terrible and one of the worst, I actually disagree. I think that there's some brilliant moments in that movie, and some of the stuff that they do with humanity there is really, really interesting to me.
Well, I am looking forward to doing this series eventually. Obviously, yes, we're going to, because why not? And I was thinking as well, maybe I need to watch a whole prequel. Sorry, I'm just calling it that. The whole prequel lineup to maybe get a whole grip of what's going on.
That's fair.
It's looking more like Dawn is probably like less important than anything else. It was more just like this enclosed tale, but it was really well told.
Yeah. No, it has a direct bridge into the psychology of Caesar. It hugely influences the third movie. So it's important. And less so than thinking of these as prequels to that original movie. I think of them in the same way that the Daniel Craig era Bond kind of rebooted. It went back to in a way you could say Casino Royale was a prequel, because it's the early days of Bond. He hasn't become even a 00 at the very beginning of that. And then of course, as the preceding movies go on, it more and more becomes like the Bond that you know. I think more that's the idea behind these Planet of the Apes movies. Just like the Daniel Craig Bonds would have never gotten to like Dr. No and been like, oh, we're going to remake Dr. No, and then now we see the Bond that you know. It's just its own separate timeline, fleshing things out in a different direction. Especially considering the prequels that had already happened. But
pardon me if it, because I know for you, prequel's an ugly word. And it's a good thing that you're defending these, is they are not prequels, they are this. So I appreciate, just because you absolutely loathe those Star Wars prequels.
Yeah. But again, it's not fully that they're a prequel. It contributes to the problems. It's also many other issues. Like, as much as I dislike prequels, and I think Temple of Doom suffers from some prequel issues, it's still a great movie.
It absolutely is.
So I don't swear off all prequels. It's just they have a lot of pitfalls that they could easily fall into, and thankfully I don't feel like any of these movies have necessarily fallen into pitfalls. And again, it's its own timeline, so it can't necessarily fall into the same ones that those Star Wars prequels could, when there's a pre-established thing that they kind of need to stick to. That they most definitely don't. Oh boy, I guess not to go off on those prequels, but
we already have.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think there's any more need to talk about them, even though we're going to talk about them anyways.
But is there any more need to talk about this? Do we have any more directions to go in?
Ignorance again. I don't know if this has happened before. I think it's happened in the past, but during the credits, and maybe because it was a smaller credits than every other blockbuster. I don't know if I count this as blockbuster. Don't worry, I'm not saying it's not. Just I don't know where it stands.
Yeah.
But it's a well-known movie, I guess, or of a franchise. They listed the individual instrumentalists, and each musician was mentioned, and usually they do animators, which makes sense. It was nice to. I guess they do in certain credits. It's just this was the first one where I noticed individual people are credited. Usually you would see that if you had a CD and you'd flip through the booklet, it would tell you who was here. But it was maybe the first times I actually saw that, I was very impressed by that. I was oh wow, finally giving credit to not just the animators. I mean, they have been, but they're giving credit to the musicians. So as a musician myself, I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'd never seen that either. But to be fair, like I said, I usually skip through these or leave them. So maybe they are. It is this industry standard. I'm not sure.
Did you know where they filmed this, by the way?
No, I didn't look it up.
Australia, New Zealand, parts of BC, and Canada was involved.
Okay.
Even though I think it's supposed to take place in LA, because I thought that's the LAX thing. I don't know. Well, it said coastline, so I mean it's somewhere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where this one took place, because again, I thought it was more separate from Caesar's group. But I guess to be fair, it's been so long that it could have been people who splintered off.
Oh, totally.
It did originally take place in San Francisco, I believe, was where Rise was set.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it was still modern day at that point.
Yeah.
before things went sideways. I thought you were going to say the original was in San Francisco. I'm like, how the hey did the Statue of Liberty end up in San Francisco unless it's the fake one from New Vegas or Las Vegas, excuse me.
But yeah, no, I feel like I'm good for now. I'm definitely looking forward. It's been one of my dreams since we started this to go through all those movies. I've got oodles and oodles of things to say. But yeah, I think for this one, I'm about ready to close it down.
I appreciate us doing this because, we've done this for many times as well with other really new releases. And I'm happy with it because this is my like raw thoughts, literally like coming like right off of what we obviously wanted to do with the last Transformers film because this is what we would have intended to do, but we didn't have these on hand. So I thank you for finally doing this. But this is my initial thoughts on the film, mixed, but feeling it because we don't do in-betweens. We do either binary choices of feeling it or not feeling it. And in this case, I'll give it a low feeling it. Personal gripes aside, it still was an enjoyable film. Please go out please go out and watch it. Give it a watch. I will have to watch this again because right now there was stuff where I guarantee you if I watch this like a third or fourth time, all those like nitpicks I have will still be there, but it'll just be like whatever. Like it's just a part of the film.
Yeah, and they might be shaded different when you watch the sequels or the predecessors that you missed.
The prequels just to this movie.
Yeah.
Because it does, like, I guess you could label those correctly as like you could call War of the Planet of the Apes, whoops, slipped the tongue there, War of the Apes, a prequel to this film. Because it does technically have stuff to do with this in certain plot points.
Yeah, and I'll say, again, as a mega fan of this franchise, except for that Tim Burton one, which I think is horrible. Besides the amazing effects, which is, well, never mind, I'll say that for when we get to that one day. I've thought that all these reboots have been really interesting. They feel like real science fiction movies. They've given us a lot of great ideas. After War, I was curious how they're going to be able to make another one after that because it set a really high bar. And this one didn't clear that bar. This is not a superior follow-up to War. But as a start to a new franchise or a new vein to this series, a new trilogy, if that's what they're going to do, I think that they set things up in a really nice way and that this has a lot of potential to give us something even better in the sequel. I like knowing the Eagle tribe. Of course, I love birds, so that whole thing was just so pretty to think. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how they're going to develop that human side of it. This franchise has always been a tragedy in a way, and the villains are their ultimate destroyers. So I'm assuming that's going to continue to ring true as it goes forward with those humans, because a bunch of fuck ups in the Planet of the Apes series. But otherwise, yeah, no, I was super excited for this. You said that you don't watch much trailers. I think they only had one trailer for this, and it played in front of every movie for months. And it was one of the few that I never got really sick of. I almost got near the end. I was like, okay, they really need to stop playing this trailer now. I've seen it so many times. It's a great trailer. It did a really good job of not telling you anything about the plot. It just showed the scope of this world. Yeah, but yeah, so either way, it lived up to my expectations, and that's a positive.
I'm happy now because I will say I don't care for what the scene, like not cinematography, but I don't care for the CGI of this. In a way, like this is a good exercise in give me a story. And this one, I think this one had me feeling it. So that's it for now.
Nice. And yeah, thanks for joining us and bearing with us with the, I'm sure, inferior sound quality to what we usually put out. But we just wanted to do this as a fun experiment, and we'll probably do this again eventually. But until then, Isaac, do you have any final words of wisdom for us?
I just wonder, where if we just go with my stupid belief that this is a prequel prequel series to the Heston Planet of the Apes, where do they get all the guns and how do they make all the bullets? Because the slings made sense, but I'm like, oh, where's the bullets coming from? Until next time, peace.